I first found out about this laptop when I went to Best Buy to buy some ink for my printer and happened to stumble upon the PC section, of course, as I tend to. I had recently reviewed the Microsoft Surface Pro 7, so I wanted to see if there were any other notable Surface books, since I've always been a fan of Surface books, but I've never been able to get my hands on one. And that's when I saw this beauty. I never thought that something like this could exist, and I wish that I had found out about it sooner. As an artist, as an animator, and a video editor, this was just a dream come true. So, introducing the Microsoft Surface Studio laptop. Is this the ultimate laptop for artists and other creatives like students as well? Let's go ahead and dive right in. And before we continue, don't forget to follow me on both Twitch and on Instagram. I will be streaming on Twitch fairly often, so I really don't want you to miss out on that. Also, why not go ahead and pledge over to the Patreon if you would like to support us? There are going to be monthly giveaways for members as a way of giving back. And then lastly, now do make sure to join the Discord because there are plenty of cool people over there. And subscribe, like this video, of course, for the usual if you end up liking it. Now on to the video. And there it is, the Surface Studio laptop. There are many configurations for this machine, but the one that I have here is the Intel Core i5-11300H, which is a quad-core CPU running at around 3.10 GHz. And it's also got Intel Iris X graphics, so this one is running integrated graphics, but higher-end models do have an RTX 3050 Ti for dedicated graphics. And this is the 16GB model, by the way, with 512 gigs of SSD storage. So pretty much everything that I'm going to say in this video about it will be with these specs in mind. And we will be getting to the performance test pretty soon, but let's go ahead and talk about the exterior design first. This laptop is comprised of metal for the entirety of the build, and this machine does feel incredibly sturdy as a result. It also has a very simple design to it where it really does not stand out in its normal laptop configuration at all. You might think that it's just a Surface Book at first, so I would say that it doesn't really have a very flashy design to it, not that much of a unique design at first glance at least. However, here are some things that are definitely unique about this device. So on the bottom, you're going to find exhaust vents on each side of the Surface, and it does help with cooling, of course, at least on the i5 model with integrated graphics. Since, again, I can pretty much only speak on that model regarding performance and thermals and things like that. You've also got a magnetic charging connector on the right, along with a headphone jack. On the left, there are going to be two Thunderbolt 4 ports, which can be used for charging. And on the bottom, you will find very sleek looking rubber grommets. And it's got a great hinge too for proper support and much more on this very soon, in fact. But I think that this series of laptops could benefit greatly from having more than just one color, since I've only seen the silver available, and honestly, it could just use a little bit of a personality bump in that sense. Just more color options would help aesthetically. Either way, this design is fine. Now, this display is very special. This is a 2400 by 1600 14.4 inch IPS display that runs at up to 120 frames per second or hertz, and even 60 hertz if you would rather have some battery life, or save some battery life, I should say. This display gets insanely bright, by the way, and is usable under all and any circumstances that I have come across. Indoors, outdoors, low light, and extreme sun, this laptop is usable literally everywhere because of this amazing screen. I will say it now. This is my favorite laptop display, and the colors are fantastic as well. But even better, this display folds around the back to turn into a tablet, and keeping the keyboard and trackpad completely covered, completely protected, without having those issues of the 2-in-1 laptops that a lot of them had in your and even some more recent ones. Now, that bottom portion right underneath the screen, by the way, it does have some fabric to avoid any scratches too. You pretty much have 3 configurations for this display, by the way. So it's going to be laptop mode essentially, which is exactly what you're seeing here. Tent mode, which is what I will call it when it attaches to the space in between the keyboard and the trackpad, you know, like just that middle section. And finally, there's going to be tablet mode where the screen lays completely flat. This is what makes this display feel so ideal for creative work and hell, even in entertainment. I love this screen, and Windows 11 looks really good on it as well. And I did make a video on Windows 11 pretty recently, by the way, like just giving my thoughts on that operating system. So if you are interested in watching that, I will be making sure to leave that link down below so that you can go ahead and check that out, but there should also be a card somewhere around here for you. Now, the speakers also aren't too shabby here. They don't get very loud, likely because of their highly eccentric placement, since they appear to fire from underneath the keyboard, and the bass is felt the highest actually kind of around the wrist rest area. Have a listen.
Where my content is better than ever with a revamped studio, many new gadgets to test out, and well, way more. I'd like to especially thank all of my patrons for being so loyal and supporting us, which is why every patron qualifies to participate in our monthly giveaways, where we give away at least one piece of tech to one winner, along with some Tech Summit merch of your choice.
Now, the keyboard and trackpad are really good. The keyboard itself doesn't have a lot of travel on the keys, but it is a pretty quiet and very efficient keyboard to use for typing for long periods of time. It also features a very subtle backlight that is only noticeable really when it's dark in the room, and it doesn't really leak off of the keys or anything like that. It's just very clean. I really like this keyboard and don't have any complaints about it. Now, the trackpad itself is almost identical, I want to say, to Apple's haptic feedback, and to me, it's really just as convincing that it's giving you a physical click whenever you're like pressing down on it, but it really just vibrates in said location wherever you end up tapping it. It is made of glass, just like how it would be on just about any MacBook. It's super smooth and gestures are very easy to execute on it as well. It's just a very good size too. Like, it's not too large, it's not too small. I think that a lot of people will be happy with the size on it. So I also don't really have any complaints about it either. This laptop just has a very good keyboard and trackpad combo here, and it's pretty tough to dispute that. This laptop supports Windows Hello for authentication. There aren't really any kind of fingerprint scanners for it, but Windows Hello is probably better anyway. Not to mention that it still works really well in low light, so I do dig it. But the quality of the webcam itself is really just fine. It's nothing really exceptional, but for a laptop, it's pretty good, and I can't really complain too much about it. It's just a 1080p camera that goes up to 30 frames per second. That's really all that I have to say about it, to be completely honest. So finally, we can talk about performance in drawing. I actually used the built-in Windows drawing app that can be triggered by pressing down on the eraser tip, by the way. I did end up having to purchase the pen separately, the Surface Pen, for it, because the Surface Pen is not included in this package, which is so strange. But still, it is very nice for drawing, but it doesn't support layers, so I don't really recommend it for drawing. Try Sketchbook Pro or Krita for that instead, but I really just wanted to see how precise I could get with the line work. It started off with the intention of pretty much just seeing how effective it was for drawing, and it ended up turning into an hour-long session of me just drawing, and I really liked the end result of this drawing. I like to draw elves a lot, and I also had far too much fun here because pressure sensitivity felt as close to drawing with pen and paper as I have ever tested on any device like this. I think that this will make for a fantastic animation device because it's just a very seamless experience. This laptop is designed for artistic work and graphic design, so I have to say that they really nailed it here. This is amazing. My iPad Pro. Now, photo editing in Photoshop is handled beautifully as well, but for some reason Photoshop did crash quite a bit. When it worked incredibly well, but when it was time to crash, it would just go ahead and crash and shut down. I think that this might be an issue with my unit in particular, but it could just be a compatibility issue with Windows 11 as well, but I can't really verify that at this time. However, I would probably be more cautious when buying this machine for Photoshop for that reason. But again, I'm almost 100% certain that this issue is really just unique to my model and not Windows 11 or the hardware featured with this machine. Again, I don't know why it was behaving this way, but it was acting that way. So sadly, I just figured that I would mention it for your sake, but I don't think that you'll end up coming across those issues personally. So surprisingly, video editing in DaVinci Resolve was really smooth. I could add layers of effects and mess around in the node editor for adding special effects and other plugins to really spice up my footage. I didn't have an issue whatsoever working in Resolve 17, but I didn't overdo it in other aspects that usually do cause crashes in Resolve, like having too much stabilized footage and having certain transitions on there. But I was still very surprised with the performance here, to be honest, on what is just the i5 model. I'm sure that the 16 gigs of RAM helped in this case whenever the projects got longer, whenever they got bigger, but I think that for the most part, even the 8 gig model should be fine. By the way, the aspect ratio is ideal for this type of work, so I really recommend using this machine or a machine like it for video editing because it really is amazing. You just feel like you have way more space on your display, not because of the size, but because of how it's shaped. And you can also edit using your pen if you prefer. So this one I pretty much just ended up adding for and giggles. Now, this final test was just for Genshin Impact, and I ran this game without the charger being plugged in, and then with the charger inserted as well. Performance was worlds different when it came to default settings without the charger. It performs horribly. It looks like it's on the brink of crashing any second, and it makes me so sad to even, well, go through with this, bothering to open up this game. But with the charger plugged in, it's night and day. The game becomes totally playable, most likely because, well, my guess here is that the graphics engine and the CPU run a lot more slowly on battery life in order to preserve it, and weakens it heavily in games like this as a result. But with the charger plugged in, this laptop is running at max performance, so hey, go nuts and enjoy your games, even though I wouldn't really recommend anything too intense, anything that's too dependent on the GPU. But regardless, I think that most games such as Genshin Impact will be totally enjoyable on a machine like this, at least playable. So let's go ahead and talk about the battery life on this device. I spent some time using this laptop as my daily driver instead of my iPad Pro, so I have been using it pretty extensively. Many reports claim 14 hours, but I get more around 9 to 10 hours, I would say, if I'm using the web and typing a lot. But if I'm drawing or editing a video, as well as gaming, then I'd say that battery life really goes down significantly to about 5 hours. Still, it's not bad at all, so I can really appreciate that. It can really handle you working on this for a good amount of time. Can't really complain. So yeah, I want to conclude this video by saying that this laptop is definitely worth it, but it is a big investment that isn't for the faint of heart. It has a fantastic display for creative work that performs really just so nicely with desktop software, and there are alternatives with dedicated graphics at the higher end. I can see a lot of people taking the Surface line as a more serious contender here when it comes to creative work, because for a while it still kind of feels like the Surface has been tossed aside. And honestly, I personally found that I was beyond productive with all of my work-related tasks on this machine. If you are a design student, then the base model is really all that you need. But if you are animating in 2D more so, or just doing a little more video work, I want to say, then this mid-tier configuration that I have here, like with the 16 gigs of RAM and more storage, will make a significant difference for you because you'll be able to get a lot more done. Not faster, but just more done at a time. But if you really wanted to take your studio with you, then go all the way out and get the Surface Studio with the Core i7 that isn't really much faster than the Core i5 that it comes with, but it does come with an RTX card, and 32 gigabytes of RAM is also an option. It's very expensive at around $3,100, I think, but the option is there if you need it. Personally, I'm really happy with this $1,800 configuration, and I wouldn't really upgrade it personally. But the Surface Studio laptop is one that I can recommend to just about every creative professional within reason, since the GPU isn't really that powerful, even at the highest end, or for the creative students out there. And I really think that the creative students are going to benefit from this the most. So yeah, Highly recommend it. And if you're interested in purchasing this laptop as well as the Microsoft Surface Pen, then I will be making sure to leave affiliate links down to Amazon in the description. However, if you really want to support this channel, I would really appreciate it if you went with my narrative link down below, which is going to lead you directly over to Best Buy. The commission rates are just a little bit higher over there, so it really will go a long way if you end up buying this or just getting anything else from Best Buy or Amazon per se. It would just help the channel out quite a bit. Obviously, that is entirely up to you, but links to those down below. There's also ABUNDA if you would rather just go ahead and finance everything. That's just going to be an option there. It's going to give you more flexible options. So links to everything down below, regardless of what you use, that is linked beneath. It's all going to help out the channel, so I would appreciate it a lot if you were to use those. Now, I would love to give a very special thanks to all of our patrons, including, or especially the tier 3s, really. They are going to be Omar, Joe Moss, and Sara Wazel. Thank you so much for all of your support because it really does go a long way. Now, on to the tier 2s coming right up. And this is super important. I would just like to give a very special thanks to all of our patrons, which are going to be listed right here on the screen. Again, a massive thanks to you all for supporting us to help us create the kind of content that we bring to you on a day-to-day basis. And thank you so much for supporting the Tech Summit podcast as well. And just remember that if you would like to be a part of this community too, and then do make sure to check out the links to our Patreon, where you don't only get bonus episodes of our podcast, but you also get automatically entered into one of our monthly giveaways of a tech product that we have reviewed that is of at least $50 in value or higher. So links to that down below. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and on Twitch, where I do try to stream on weekends as often as I can, of course. But with that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you all later. Enjoy.